Hello and welcome to Living with Romanian and Overseas Rescue Dogs video podcast series. My name is Mish Masters of The Dog's Point of View, and I specialise in working with adopters of foreign rescue dogs. During this video podcast series, I'm going to be chatting to adopters who will share their unique journeys with the dogs they've adopted, as well as talking to some canine professionals who are going to share their experiences of working with these amazing natural world dogs. You can find all the recordings of the podcast series over on the Dog's Point of View YouTube channel, as well as on the main website, where there are also free resources, workshops and online courses created specifically for adopters of Romanian and overseas rescue dogs. I hope you enjoy the video podcast series and find it interesting and perhaps helpful for living your best life with your dogs. Hello. So we are here today on the video podcast with the lovely Gillian, who has very kindly agreed to come along and share her story with us about her two. Are they both Romanian, Gillian?
They're both Romanian, yes. Yeah.
Two Romanian dogs, Monty and Rupert. Thank you so much, Gillian, for agreeing to come along and talk to us. I know it can be a bit nerve-wracking, but I know that there will be lots of valuable benefits and lots of valuable tidbits that you're going to share with people today with these very different, two very different dogs that you have adopted from Romania. So let's kick off with, if I can find my slides, how you came to adopt a Romanian dog in the first place is probably a good place to start.
Yes, yeah. Well, I'd also always had rescue dogs. And the last rescue dog I had from 6 months old till 14 and a half. Lost him at the end of March 2021 to cancer. He'd had cancer 5 times in his life. He'd had his spleen removed 18 months before he did pass away. So he lived another 18 months. He was, we did really well with him. But I lost him at the end of March 2021. And we were still working from home then, and it was lovely sunny weather, sort of seeing people walking by, and I thought I could give another dog a good home. I was going to wait a few months, but then I thought, I've got a home here, and there were lots of dogs wanting them. So I just started looking. I'd always wanted a staffy. I'd had English Bull Terriers when I was younger. I'd always wanted a staffy. So I started, looking around tentatively and just made a half-hearted attempt at adopting one from Dogs Trust. And then I was out walking one day just by myself and met some neighbours with a beautiful, it looked similar to a golden retriever. So I got talking to them, and they'd adopted this dog from Romania as a puppy. And they said, absolutely no problems, a lovely dog. So I just started then looking at the different Romanian websites, saw one in a kennels that looked exactly like my previous dog, Leo. So I just emailed, gave a bit of an update about myself, a bit of background, and the lady emailed back and said that Brian, the dog, was on reserve, but they had another one in the country already that was quite similar. So I spoke to the lady from the rescue, and she gave me a bit of a background of Monty. Monty'd been brought over at 6 months. He'd been adopted and handed back after just a few days. And then he was in kennels. Then he was adopted a second time. He was there for a couple of months. I never found out why he left that second place. Back in kennels again. Then he was adopted by a retired couple up in Scotland. He was there for 7 months, but they lived on farmland. And when he was out one day with the owners, a lamb jumped across in front of him, and Monty started chasing this lamb. And the owner said that either the harness broke or he let go. I don't know what happened. Monty caught the lamb, started throwing it up in the air as he does with his soft toys, and obviously killed the lamb. So the farmer then said, you have to get rid of him or I'll shoot him. So they unfortunately had to hand him back as well. So in his first 12 months in this country, he'd had 3 adoption breakdowns. So he'd been 50 months. It's a lot.
It's a lot for them to deal with, and with every major change like that, every change back to case. So even though it's 3 homes, it's like 5 6, including you, because obviously it's back in kennels and then back in a
Yeah,
home and then back. And every time that it makes it harder for them to trust, it makes it harder for them to settle. The more times this happens, it gets, it has
yeah.
it's quite a significant impact on them.
It
Definitely.
does, it does. And he was castrated as well before he was 6 months old, before he was brought over, which again, I don't think has done him any good. I mean, his mum was estranged. She was rescued when she was pregnant. So, he was born in the shelter as well. So there's a lot really in his background that
Yeah, absolutely.
now understand. I didn't at the time, but, having had Monty and having to learn, and obviously joining the dog's point of view, I've learned so much now, not just about Monty and foreign dogs, but in dogs in general, which is helping Rupert and obviously any future dogs that I have.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think everything was against him.
Yeah.
So we picked him up from Scotland, from kennels in Scotland, on the 28th of July, 2021, and he'd been 15 months in the country by that point.
So this left picture is obviously him still in Romania as a
This
puppy.
was him as a puppy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was called Adolf, and they thought,
Yeah.
they have to. So they thought Montgomery, General Montgomery,
Yeah.
Monty, and they changed his name before he came over here.
Yeah.
But that was him as a puppy. You can
Yeah.
see there how nervous he is, really, and he was described as shy on the
Yeah.
website. I didn't
And
see this
obviously
until a lot later.
this is
So,
him in his spot at the top of the stairs.
yeah, this was him. Probably the first few days after we brought him home. I mean, I live by myself, so it's a very, very quiet house. But he spent at least 10 days, maybe 2 weeks. That was his spot at the top of the stairs, and he wouldn't move from there. He would go out on walks. I've been told that he was fine on a lead, so he was used to a lead and a harness. But I remember the first time he actually came into the box room where I was working, sort of tentatively peed around the door, and I was just so pleased. I thought, he's sort of, coming around a little bit and developing a little bit in confidence. But, it took a long time, and I just had to leave him. I just left him to do what he wanted to do and be where he wanted to be.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot, isn't it? It's a lot for him to adjust to, again, another new home, another strange face,
Yeah.
and giving him that time to just catch his breath and watch, absorb, process. It's so valuable for all of these dogs, but especially the more nervous, timid ones, giving them that just time to get their bearings, because they're so disorientated. And like you say, he did then obviously start coming to explore, and then the curiosity comes out. So that's obviously how things moved forward. Did you get any kind of information from the rescue that you adopted him from? Did they provide you any information as such on settling him in, or was it just
Not
this is
really. I mean, I was told to have him on two leads. I was told to walk him with a slip lead, which I now realise was completely the wrong thing to do. I wasn't really given much advice, but then I didn't really ask for it because, I'd had dogs all my life. So I thought I knew what I was doing. And to be honest, I'm not sure how much they understood about
sure.
the needs of a very, very fearful dog.
Yeah.
And I think the environment that he came to, because I think his last home would have been perfect because it was on farmland. It was lovely and quiet, retired couple with another dog. That would have been the perfect home for him. And he came here, and I live, I mean, across the road I've got countryside. Behind the house I've got countryside, but I do live on a main road. I've got a big housing estate behind me that we have to get through to get to the countryside.
Yeah.
So there's lots of places we could walk to, but with a nervous dog, that isn't easy.
Yeah. And he was quite nervous on those first walks, wasn't
he? He was nervous. I didn't realise. Monty's great fear is people. He absolutely terrified of people, petrified of children. And he only had to hear a child's voice sort of streets away and he would panic. And his default position was to bolt.
Yeah.
And the first few weeks, it was obviously the end of July, so it was a school holiday, so it was comparatively quiet. I was taking him out, but not knowing, I was taking him on the normal walks that I used to take my dog on. So I was walking him along the main road, down onto the fields, wide open spaces. I realised overwhelmed him. So on the fields, he was panicking. And again, I didn't realise, I didn't know anything about trigger stacking. I couldn't really read the signs. all my dogs up to this point, even though I'd loved them, had been dogs, just dogs. Whereas I had to learn with Monty that there's a lot more to them than just, being a dog and going where you tell them, basically.
It's a big old rabbit hole, isn't it?
It is. It is. So I just take him on these normal walks. I think he was shut down, and I didn't realise, and he was just following me. On the walks, as I said, I had him on a lead on his harness, a slip lead round his neck, which was totally wrong, walking along the main roads, down onto fields. And a couple of times he just became totally overwhelmed when he saw a flock of pigeons, and he was just spinning round and round and round on the lead. And coming up the road, he'd see people and he wouldn't know what to do, and he'd be pulling back, and I'd try to make him walk on instead of going around the back, or all sorts of things. And then it got to a climax one day, and I was on a field, and he just lost it, and he just spun round and round and round and round, and I was going round and round and round. And I panicked. I thought, if he wasn't on two leads, I'd have let go, he would have gone.
Yeah.
So I scaled it all back then.
Yeah.
And
I mean, to be honest, you mentioned about the slip lead being the wrong thing. And I think, for the super fearful dogs to have a slip lead as a backup is not the wrong thing, because from a safety point of view, I mean, yes, ideally, we want to move them on from a slip lead, but the priority is to keep them safe and secure. So to have it as a backup, you had the harness and the other lead as well. It's not necessarily the wrong thing to do. And obviously the rescue were aware of his nervousness and his fearfulness, which is why they said to you for the two leads, didn't they? So, I mean,
they did.
Yeah, I don't think you were wrong. And I think it was, was a good safety option for him at that point.
Yeah. I mean, I've now moved on. I still have him on two leads, even sort of more than 3 years later. But I have him on a harness, and it's one of these secure harnesses, obviously, with the double strap underneath. And I have a lead attached to
the extra strap, the escape proof one, you mean?
That's it. Yes. Yeah. And I also have a lead attached to a walking belt, which for probably about 2 years I had then attached to his collar. Again, for safety reasons, and because he would bolt, that would be it. If he was panicked, he would bolt.
Yeah, of course.
Recently, over the past probably about 3 months, I still have the two wood leads, but I don't have one attached to his collar now. I've attached to the handle at the back of his harness. So both leads are attached to his harness.
Yeah.
So I'm not pulling on his neck.
Yeah.
And again, he seems a lot more relaxed with that as well. But still the two for security reasons.
Yeah. But he did, as you say, you scaled things back. Was it around that time you came into the coaching group?
It was. It was. Yeah.
I mean,
I'd got
obviously moved. Oh, look, we've got a picture of his harness there. Look.
Yeah. I'd got a trainer. I'd asked for a trainer to help me, and had a few sessions, probably about a month with her. But things that she was saying, she'd say, let him sniff for 3 seconds and then pull him on. And I thought, well, that doesn't really seem right. She was flooding him, so she was taking us around by the primary school just up the road, and then flooding him, and he panicked. She was getting him to walk up and down, and he just totally lost it again. And she said, oh, he is scared. And I thought, well, I've been telling you this. So I stopped that. And then I'd been reading up about Romanian dogs, and I read one of your articles, I think, in response to one in a paper where they'd been very much against adopting Romanian dogs, and you'd written an article. So I read that, and from that I found you, and I found your website, and I joined. I think it was towards the end of October 2021.
Yeah.
Which has been enormously helpful. Just talking to other people, knowing that other people have been in similar situations, some a lot more difficult, people with difficulty in the house and not accepting family members. My problems were outside, because other than his fearfulness outside, Monty has been the ideal dog. He's never destroyed anything. He's not got separation anxiety, which my previous dog had. So looking back, my previous dog had a lot more issues. Even though he could walk on the road, he was a lot more nervous in a way.
Yeah.
Even inside, fireworks, he would hide himself in wardrobes and in shower cubicles and drool. Whereas Monty doesn't like fireworks, but he's not frightened to that extent. As I said, no separation anxiety. Gets on brilliant with dogs. We look after my daughter's dog a lot. I've had my son's dog staying with us. My brother's dog's been in the house. So in every other way apart from his fearfulness outside, I couldn't wish for a better dog.
Wonderful, yeah.
And he's so affectionate. Once he gets to know somebody, he's the sweetest boy, you
Yeah.
know, and he gets so excited when he sees people that he knows. He's lovely.
He was a bit nervous. I remember going back, I'm kind of recalling conversations we had on our calls in the group. And I do remember he was a bit nervous of one of your sons. Hello, Rupert.
It's
We
Rupert.
knew you'd get in on the action, Rupert.
Yeah,
I
he
remember
was.
he was a bit nervous of one of your sons, wasn't he? Because I remember you were doing some stuff. I remember a video around that where we were seeing the progress with him and him taking those steps and being more
Yes.
confident with him over a period.
Yeah. He was always nervous. When somebody came into the house, he was always nervous and he would run upstairs.
Yeah.
Sometimes he would bark from the top of the stairs, but he would always run upstairs. And then he would tentatively, again, over weeks this was, start coming down. And once he'd met somebody for a couple of times, again, he was absolutely fine with them. But it was that initial meeting.
Yeah.
One of my sons is in the army, so we hardly ever saw him. But he stayed with us about 6 weeks recently before being sent elsewhere. And Monty was absolutely brilliant with him, even though he's only seen him probably about 4 times in the past.
Yeah.
But having him in the house was absolutely no problem. We were going out on walks together. So it is that, it was that initial introduction to somebody. And again, I wouldn't put any pressure on. If he wanted to stay upstairs, that was fine. When he started to come down tentatively, again, it was fine. If he wanted to go out, I never made him, introduce him to anybody. It was entirely on his terms.
Yeah. Again, it's giving him that time and space to just process. Who are you? What are you about? Are you safe? Are you dangerous? Are you going to do anything, that I need to be worried about? And obviously, I know you kind of instructed everybody, just ignore him, just let him do whatever he wants. And that helps him to be able to go, okay, I'm going to investigate. And then he starts to investigate. And then the confidence comes, okay, you are safe. And generally with these dogs, once you're in, you're in. And like you say, even with your son who's not around very often, once he's in, it's like Tramp with my brother. He used to be quite unhappy, shall we say, about very large men, lone men out walking. And we did work around it, and he was fine, just seeing people out and about. But when he first met my brother, he's a very large man, he wasn't overly keen, bless him. But it only took him a week or two to get to know him. And then I hadn't seen my brother for a good couple of years, I think. And when he steps into a room, he takes up the whole room. And he came round, and I was like, oh, I don't know how he'll be with him, in the house coming in. And my house, this was when we were at my old house, which was a very small house anyway. But he was absolutely fine. Once they're in, tends to be, that's it. You're in. I like you.
Yeah.
You're in my gang.
And they don't forget either, because a couple of weeks ago I'd gone out a bit later with the boys, because I still walk them at 6 o'clock when it's nice and quiet. So I've gone out a bit later, and there was a lady coming down behind us who probably not seen for about a year, one of our neighbours. And as soon as Monty saw her, he was wagging his tail, he was pulling to get to her, and she said, I can't believe it. She said, he just is, the way he's behaving is so different. She's so confident, but she said he looks different as well. She said he looks happy, which I thought was great.
Yeah, beautiful.
But again, he'd not seen her for a long time. Other neighbours, we've got 2 male neighbours who are, 6 foot, more than 6 foot. And Monty wouldn't go anywhere near, first of all. And then he, after a good few months, years, he would sort of tentatively sniff, but again, from a distance, stretching his neck as much as he could.
Yeah.
Whereas now, as soon as he sees them, again, he's bounding up to them. He can't wait to say hello.
Beautiful.
And it's nice when people comment on the difference.
Absolutely.
It's been a long time, and he's still not.
Yeah.
He's still not. He is still nervous outside.
Yeah.
But he's more able to handle things.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It takes him time, doesn't it? He does. It definitely takes him time. He needs that time to take things on board and I suppose clarify for himself that everything is safe. But I know you were taking him off to the secure fields. This is quite early on, as I say, isn't it? I remember this
quite early on. Yeah, this is
Um,
in his first year here.
yeah, yeah. Having a beautiful time there. I love this picture. I remember when you first shared it.
Yeah, yeah.
Bless
No,
him.
he does. I mean, I try. I should probably take him a lot more, but I try to take him every couple of months or so. But I do need to get better organised. And we'll see later on. There's a video of him with Rupert
Yes.
just a few weeks ago, and with my brother's husky,
Yep.
Luna.
Yep.
So it's nice for him to be able to have a run round
Yeah.
because I don't know if he'll ever be off lead, to be honest, because I think that fear will always be underlying, and I
Under the
think if anything,
surface.
he would just run.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so
I mean, sometimes there is, you know, there is a point there is a point which we kind of have to accept. Sometimes you won't get them past, and
yeah,
it is about recognizing that within his core temperament, you know.
yes,
Um, but like you say, he has a very full life. He does go off to the field, and we've obviously got some stuff coming up on holidays. And this, I
mm-hmm.
love this picture as well. This is you guys at the cemetery, which I know is one of Monty's favorite walks.
It is. It is.
And
Yeah,
this was a
this
really
is.
good place, wasn't it, for him? Because
Yeah.
it's the space for you to be able to maneuver. Actually, a really good space for, for training, if you like, as well,
Mm,
and helping him to experience all the things, yeah, not all the things, but some of the things out in the world that worry him, like
yeah.
people and stuff, but with that space to navigate. So,
Mm,
yeah, cemeteries can be really good for both reactive dogs and your nervous, more fearful dogs, for, as spaces to walk where it's, more relaxing and enjoyable, but also from a point of view of being able to help them take steps forward
mm,
and
yeah.
grow.
Yeah, I mean, we go here quite a lot. We go here definitely on a Sunday morning now, and Monty knows because my partner comes round on a Saturday. And when we get up on a Sunday morning, he knows as soon as he's there, that's it, and he's just going from one to the other, and he's looking at us as though to say, no, it doesn't open till 9 o'clock. We can't go yet. But this was with my son's cockapoo,
Yep.
Barney.
Yeah.
And you can see there that I've got the two leads.
Yes. Yeah. This is
As
obviously you're
well.
walking about, and obviously he's attached to you as well on
Yeah, yeah.
second lead.
Yeah. But the cemetery is great because there are so many different paths.
Yeah.
As you said, we can avoid people, so we can, there's good visibility. We can see people in the distance. We can avoid them if we need to. And just to the back now,
You can
there's
stand and watch them as well from
yeah,
a appropriate distance for him, can't you? So he
yeah, yeah,
just gets that
yeah,
time.
definitely, yeah. And just to the back of us, there's a path there which goes into woodland. It leads into a country park, and we always used to. We would take that path again. This is all over months and years, really, because we start off very, very slow, very small, and then
Yeah.
gradually expand. So we started going off into the woodland, but we would turn at the end of the path. We would turn left, go around a field, then come back into the cemetery. And then there was one day, probably 2 3 months ago now, where we got to the end of the path where we would always turn left, and he stopped and he looked up at me and then looked down the right side of the path, and then he looked back at me and then back down the right hand side. So I said, "Do you want to go that way?" And that was it. He set off down the right, and that leads through woodland. I'd always been wary about taking that path because it's quite narrow, and I thought if somebody's coming towards me or off-lead dogs or anything, there's nowhere really for us to move out
Yeah.
of the wood. But we went there, ended up in this country park, which is ideal because again, there are so many different paths you can take. There are rivers, all sorts. So we ended up walking around there and then back onto the cemetery, into the cemetery again. So that's what he wants to do now. Every Sunday he knows, and he goes straight to that, turns down the right-hand path, and then he decides which way we go because there are quite a few ways we could go.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to give him choices. I think this is so important, to give him choices wherever he can.
Yeah.
Poor little Rupert gets dragged along behind. It's all Monty's walk. And
Yeah, but Rupert gets to do other stuff as well,
he
though.
gets to do other
He
things.
doesn't. I mean, it's definitely, that agency piece is definitely something that can be so valuable for the more nervous, anxious, fearful dogs in terms of, giving them the choice. There are, for some of them, it can be harder for them to make their own choices if they don't have a sense of safety. I mean, I know that you and Monty have the most beautiful relationship and have done for quite some time. The bond and the trust between you is amazing. So he has that sense, total sense of safety with you. So he feels brave enough to ask to step outside, to go a different way, step outside his comfort zone, and do that exploration piece. Which is a really, is a really positive sign. Some of the dogs, if they haven't got that confidence in who they're with, if you like, it can be more tricky for them to want to take that step outside, which is why we always say, focus on building that relationship, that trust, and ask the question. It's important with the more nervous dogs to not limit them as such, and always ask the questions like, how is this for you? Do you want to? And obviously listen for the answer. Sometimes it might be yes, sometimes it might be no, but even recognizing those answers and obviously acknowledging them can be a great way to build the trust. But the other thing I think with the fearful dogs, it's worth mentioning for anybody watching, sometimes giving them choices can be scary. So it's important to recognize that as well. And I mean, I've noticed this with Tramp sometimes, if he's had some increased anxiety for some reason, whatever that might be, I quite often allow him to choose the direction we go in or the path that we take on a walk. But if he's having a difficult day for whatever reason, you can see him. I don't know what way to go. I don't know how I'm feeling. I don't know what. So as soon as I recognize that in him, I'll be like, okay, mate, no worries. We're going to go this way. And I'll step in. I won't leave him there trying to decide. That kind of rabbit in headlights. I don't know what I want. I'm too worried or nervous or fearful. So it's important to recognize that in the more nervous and fearful dogs as well. And be aware of when you might just need to step in and say, okay, yeah, I'm going to make this decision for you. But I love that he is making those choices to explore, because obviously I am very aware of how fearful it's been, and I love how relaxed he looks here, and he's obviously very interested in something.
Yeah. No, I mean, as I said, I've had him for over 3 years, and it's really only the last year since I've got Rupert that things have really developed in his confidence, I think.
Yeah.
But, and I think, as I said before, obviously joining the dog's point of view and learning to be led by Monty to recognise, as you said about Tramp, recognise when he's feeling overwhelmed. Trigger stacking was a huge thing for me because I was totally unaware. And recognizing as well that there's so many things that can impact on them, like the weather, and one scary thing can then impact for the rest of the walk or days afterwards. So it is, I think I've given up, I'm not giving up, but just realized really that the walk is for Monty, and just to be led by him. And if he doesn't want to go one day, well, okay, we'll turn around and we'll come home, and it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk about the lovely little Rupert, who came along about a year ago. Is it now just over a year ago?
Yeah, Rupert came at exactly 2 years to the day that we picked up Monty.
Oh, wow.
28th of July 2023. I'd been toying with the idea of having quite often had 2 dogs in the house. I'd look after, when I had my previous dog, Leo, I'd quite often look after Jasmine, Julia's dog, and look after my son's dog, Puffin, the beagle. So quite often have 3 dogs in the house, and I know that Monty gets on with dogs, and he seems more confident around them. So I was toying with the idea, but then I was thinking, well, I'm by myself. How would I manage if another dog turns out like Monty, really? So I was toying with the idea, and I'd started looking on websites again. I started looking again at the Romanian ones, and I met somebody through the dog's point of view, who runs a dog rescue and lives quite near me. So we'd started meeting up. We'd go out for lunch now and again.
Solmutz. She dies Solmutz, isn't she?
Solmutz, yeah. And I sort of tentatively raised the idea with her. Oh, yeah, great, whatever. So I said, well, it needed to be a small dog, and it needed to be confident, because I couldn't have coped with another large, fearful dog. And there was one on the site, and I think once I'd said to Di, that was it. It had to happen.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Di would have jumped on
that. So I started looking on the site. There was a little dog called Benji, and I mentioned this to Di, and she said, "Oh well," she said, "I think you'd be better with Rupert." So she explained why. And she said, "Rupert and Nancy. This is Rupert on the left, and Nancy, his sister, on the right."
Look at those teeth. That's Nancy.
That's Nancy, yeah. I mean, Rupert's got the undershot jaws.
Yes, he has,
Not as pronounced. just move out of the way. And I was told, I think I recall rightly, that these were thrown over the wall of the rescue lady in Romania, and their brother and sister. And I suspect that they probably had a home because they're both incredibly confident.
Yeah.
And what happened? Rupert, Di spoke to the rescue lady, and she suggested that Rupert would be the best bet. Nancy had been adopted about a month before Rupert came to me by a retired couple who'd never had a dog before. So again, they wanted a dog that was as bomb-proof as possible, and Rupert and Nancy were recommended. They wanted a female, so they took Nancy. And Nancy has turned out to be the perfect dog as well for them. So I think they did have a home.
Yeah.
And I wonder if possibly
certainly sounds like it.
Yeah, maybe the owner couldn't cope with them anymore, and was good enough to throw them over the rescuer's wall and not just abandon them on the street.
Yeah.
So Rupert came over, said 28th of July.
This was the setup you had for him for when he arrived. So we've got a double height baby gate, which I love, and it can be something that a lot of these dogs need. Some of them are fantastic jumpers, and I know Rupert did, didn't he?
Yeah, we had a single
his own little quiet space in this room, which is sunbathing in there. Look, bless him.
Yeah, he's there on the sofa. You can just see him. This was probably a few weeks in. Again, I'm lucky in a way because I do live by myself. So I've got a house where they've got free reign. So this was Rupert's room. Initially, I just had the bottom baby gates, and he was fine. But he's got the sofa. He's got 2 armchairs. He's got a table. He likes lying on the table and watching the world go by. He's got a crate. He was never shut in it. It was just that was where his bed was. So I kept them separate for, I think, the first few days, maybe 2, 3, just so that they could have a sniff through the baby gate and see how they got on. And I didn't take Rupert out for probably a week or so on a walk, and I just had them out in the yard. But I always had him on a lead, even in the house. I would be with them all the time, supervising. I would always have him on a slip lead in the house when he was with Monty, just to make sure. Yeah. And in the yard, I always had him on a long line as well, again, just to be sure that everything was okay. And it was. So within a few days, I then let them out. But whenever I go out of the house, I would always shut Rupert in his room. Again, just for safety reasons, because there's such a difference, there's 20 kilos difference between them. And I didn't want anything happening while I was away. And then there was one day we had Jasmine as well. So Rupert was shut in his room. I came back, and all 3 of them were behind the kitchen door. So Rupert had jumped over the bottom baby gate. So that's why we had to put the double one in.
I love it.
But that was his space. And as soon as he'd see me getting ready in anything other than, my casual clothes, he would run straight into his bedroom, straight into his crate, and I would shut him in, and that was it. So it's been really good. But, it's not like shut him in a crate because he's got the whole room there. So he had a lot of space to himself.
So he transitioned completely differently to Monty, didn't he, into home life?
He was, he walked
so much more confident.
Yeah. He was delivered to the door, and within 5 minutes he'd had something to eat. And then I have got a video, which isn't a very good one, of literally 10 minutes he'd been in the house, and he was wagging his tail, and he was jumping up, and he was play bowing, completely opposite to Monty.
Yeah.
If I'd had Rupert since a puppy and gone through all the socialization stages perfectly, he couldn't have been any easier than he is now. Really couldn't, in every single way. He's such a confident little boy.
Yeah.
He loves people. He loves children. He loves children on bikes and skateboards, roller skates. He's not bothered by traffic. He'll choose to go down the main road if he has a choice.
Yeah.
He's not bothered about dogs. I have realised that he is a bit wary of dogs, again, through picking up on body language and things. And once we've said hello to somebody or we've said hello to a dog, he will then jump up at me as though getting that reassurance.
Yeah.
But the fireworks, he walks, the firework goes off. What was that? And carries on.
And he's been fantastic for Monty, hasn't he, in terms of helping him with his confidence?
He's been brilliant, yeah.
So here they are at the play centre together, looking super handsome.
Yeah, this was an indoor play centre. It was one winter. I think it was maybe last winter when the weather was so bad and the outside field was shut for a long time because of the condition of the ground. So this is an indoor play area. Again, Rupert just walked in, jumped on everything. Monty is looking relaxed here, but he was initially very wary, and he was round the back of me, and Dave, my partner, was with us as well. So he was sticking very close to us. He was wary because when we came in, there's a desk straight away, and there was a big man there, obviously, who owned it. So that scared him. But we've been twice since then, and once he knows a place and he knows what's expected, then he's fine.
It's that whole safety piece, isn't it? Am I safe here? And then once they get there, they're like, okay, I'm okay.
Yeah. But no, they get on really, really well. And initially I was walking Rupert separately from Monty, and then I started walking them together, and they just love it. And I've noticed really as well that Rupert as well, if Monty's not with him, he turns and looks at me a lot more.
Yeah.
I think, they're used to having each other and having that companionship on the walk.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got Rupert, a little video clip of Rupert's first time off lead. I love this, bless him, at the beach.
Yeah, well, my daughter organises social dog walks every couple of months, and this was in May. So this was, I was with my daughter and one of my sons and a few other people, and I had Rupert on a long line. And they said, oh, let him off. I said, well, I've never let him off. Oh, he'll be fine. So I did. And he was.
Yeah.
He was brilliant. He gives a little woof.
Jasmine?
No, that's not Jasmine. That's my son's new cockapoo.
Oh, right. Yeah, we have.
There's Jasmine just appearing there.
Yeah.
Jasmine was on a lead because her foot is still causing then.
Yeah.
But no, he was fine. So there was one point when he went running off into the distance, he saw somebody wearing similar colours to me and Dave, and he went running off. I think he thought it was them. Rupert, and he came charging back, so bewildered, isn't he? So I thought that was you.
Bless him.
But I could never do that with Monty. Even I think taking him to the beach at the moment would just be too overwhelming.
Yeah.
That open space.
Yeah.
So so I'm doing things with Rupert that I can't do with Monty, that I would like to do, but I can't. So the one on the left is him after his first pet trailing session.
Yeah, which he loves, doesn't he?
He loves. We go pet and man trailing every couple of months if I can.
Yeah.
And he absolutely loves it.
Yeah.
And Monty would be brilliant. He would be brilliant at following the trail, but the rest of it will be too overwhelming because they work one-on-one.
Yeah.
So if you're not actually searching or not hiding for another dog, then the dog is in the car with people watching over. And just being in the car and having people coming and going would have been too much for Monty as well. So
he has these lovely group walks, doesn't he?
Yes, yeah. As I said, I've tried to do things for Rupert separately as well, because he doesn't get the chance to be off lead. The right hand side one is one again when we've got Jasmine staying and our group walks.
Yeah.
I don't take three if I'm by myself. This was a weekend, so Dave was with me. So Dave would have Jasmine, I would have the other two. But they're absolutely fine. Monty is so good with dogs. He's so gentle with them. There's never been any sign of aggression to any dog at all. So he's brilliant. He really is.
Love him.
Yeah.
And this is the gang. Love this picture.
I know this. I love Monty's face. He was just as though he's saying, "Oh God, when are they going to go?" So we've got Jasmine at the back, obviously Rupert at the front, and then the one with the little white chin is Walter. That's my son's new cockapoo.
Yeah.
He was only a puppy. He was probably about 8-9 months there.
Love this picture. His face like, excuse me, there's no room for me on my sofa.
I know. But again, he's so good, and he gets barks at. Walter is quite yappy. Even Jasmine, when I used to have just Jasmine and Monty, she resource guards. So if she saw that Monty had something, she had the same, but Monty had it, she would go and take it out of his mouth literally, and then guard the two of them, and he wouldn't bother. He'd just turn and get something else instead.
He's very tolerant.
He is. I mean, Jasmine is a bit of a bully, I think. She doesn't bully Monty anymore, but she does bully Rupert, and he doesn't really put up with it. You can see his little face falls when Jasmine arrives.
Oh, love him.
He will give a little growl.
As long as she's paying attention and listening. Oh, this is what we've got now. the guys
Yeah.
at the secure field together. And this is your other son's dog, is it? Husky?
This is my brother's dog. My brother's
Brother's dog. Sorry. I'm
Yeah.
getting mixed up with family members.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is really lovely because obviously, like you say, Rupert does need, sorry, Monty does need to stay on a lead. So when we get to the secure field, he gets to have a good old roar around with his
Yes.
mate.
Yeah. And again, this was probably about 6 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And it's nice to
He's been-
see him leading here.
yeah.
You know, that he's the one that the others are following. He's in charge here. So that was nice.
A lot of the Rommies I find do like to be chased.
Yeah.
Tramp likes to be chased rather than be the chaser.
Yeah.
Yeah. I used to have to tell Sky to go and chase him because that was what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
I mean, she quite likes chasing things, obviously, border collie. So she was happy to oblige, and that was the game we'd play. If she wants to play with me normally when we're on a walk, she's got a toy and she wants to play with me. So I used to have to say to her, go chase Tramp, and off she'd go. She might do it now. She's right behind me. And because then he'd be just over here and she'd set off and he'd set off. And yeah, that was the game that they'd play. But that's beautiful watching them all chundering around together. Bless them. So obviously Monty has made masses of progress. I know he still has, a ways to go, and there are still things that we want to try and help him, encourage him to grow into and expand into, if you like. But he did go on his holidays, didn't he, with you? And he coped with it really, really well, didn't he?
Yeah. We went
last year, was it?
It was last year, last November.
Yeah.
I'd joined a website called Reactive Dog Holidays, and I was just sort of flicking through, and there was one in Chapel-on-le-Frith in Derbyshire, which isn't too far from us.
Beautiful part of the country.
It is. And I thought, I need to make the effort because I myself haven't been on holiday since April 2019 because obviously it was COVID, and then I got Monty.
Yeah.
So I've not been anywhere really. So I thought we need to make the effort and see how we can cope. Yeah. And this was a lovely place. It was a little annex attached to the lady's house. The lady had lived in Spain for a few years, and she'd worked in shelters in Spain, and she'd had Podencos of her own as well.
Oh yeah.
And it was really well set up for dogs. They could go everywhere. They had like a country garden with 6 and 7 foot fencing, and then right at the bottom in the second picture where you can see Monty, there was an enclosed field.
Yeah.
But it was enclosed, it wasn't secure. So again, I had to have them both on leads.
Yeah.
And then just after the field, there was a path which led down through woods to a reservoir. So it was ideal. The weather wasn't good, and it was very windy at one point. So
I remember, yes. I remember.
That wasn't brilliant.
But he did cope with it really, really well, didn't he? This is
coped.
actually a little video we'll play while you're chatting.
Yeah, he coped really well.
Yeah.
Again, because it was a strange place, it was a strange lady. He'd obviously heard something there, I think, and Rupert went along
the wind. Yeah, but little Rupert's there to back him up.
Yeah,
but
what you seen, what you heard.
You can tell he's sort of like, woo, but he's definitely, if you take that back, even a year, he would have really struggled. And obviously Monty Rupert, I'm getting all my names muddled up. Mm-hmm. Rupert makes a big difference, doesn't he? Having him,
he does,
by his sides, which is amazing.
Yeah, we were actually able to go out as well because the lady and her daughter run a dog sitting service if you wanted to go out. So some of Dave's brother lives in Chapel, and his sister and brother-in-law come up from Nottingham, so we wanted to go out for lunch with them and for dinner. And Rupert and Monty stayed with this lady's daughter. She came round in the afternoon just to introduce herself, and they stayed 3 hours with this lady that they'd never met before. And she said they were absolutely fine. Just sort of played a bit, and then they just both went to sleep, which again, was great for Monty to stay with a stranger in a strange place.
Absolutely. Bless his heart. He's such a good boy. I love him, and he's so handsome.
Yeah, he's the sweetest boy. He really is. And I did keep a diary. I started keeping a diary probably for about 18 months, 2 years, and I would log what we did on each walk and what happened on each walk. And I mean, things like pigeons. Monty had a very high prey drive, and things like pigeons. He would lunge. Squirrels, he would lunge. people he would panic, he would lunge and bark, because he went from trying to run to then barking.
Yeah.
And now he doesn't bother about pigeons. He doesn't really bother about squirrels or cats or anything.
Yeah.
And people now, as I said, he's still nervous. So people, he's generally okay. And even on walks now, he goes up and he sniffs dog walkers and says hello to them, which he would never do.
And these are, that I can't emphasize enough for a dog like Monty. These are huge steps of progress. It's not just, it's progress. It's huge for him to, to be moving forward into those kind of things.
Yeah.
And I know it's taking a long time. But the fact that you have given him his own time to get there, you tend to see them kind of lots more things start to drop in, which obviously with the arrival of Rupert has really helped. But every time I speak to you, there's sort of another layer of progress that you're telling me, and then another layer of progress that you're telling me, and it definitely is kind of speeding up and expanding more and more and more. And I'd say it is important that we ask those questions. Can you go to the next level? Can you go to the next layer? Can you do this extra thing? Looking for the answer, and if they say no, they say no. But if we don't ask the question, then we can obviously run the risk of limiting them when they could actually cope with a bit more. But I love that he went on this holiday, and I think it was really, really good for him.
Yes, yeah,
Bless him.
Yeah, I'd definitely do it again. And as I said, it's great because these reactive dog, the places on the reactive dog website, reactive dog holiday website, they're obviously geared up for reactive dogs. And
absolutely.
When you've got people who understand the issues that you might have and everything is secure, it was really good. I'd definitely go again. Yeah,
I'm sure there's some not far from me, so you could just bring them down this way so I could come
maybe.
and meet
them. Yeah.
So obviously we need to wrap things up, sadly.
Yes.
But they are best friends, and I love hearing about their adventures both together and individually. So just to wrap up, Gillian, is there anything that what would be your best tips, if you like, for adopters of these dogs, or even potential adopters that might be watching this? If you've got like one or two tips that you would share with someone from what you've learned from living with them and
I would say go for it. I mean, I don't, people say, do you not regret, obviously getting Monty because he's limited your life, and I don't, because he's the sweetest dog, and I think being able to see them come on, even though it takes some time.
Wonderful.
But I think the important thing is to listen to them.
Yep, that's him now.
I think Julia's arrived with Jasmine.
Yep. That's fine. That's all right.
Yeah. I'd say really,
we're all used to dogs barking on cameras.
I'd say be led by them. Don't have too many expectations. Don't expect that you're necessarily going to have a dog where you can, go for long walks, you can go to pubs, you can go to cafes. And I think, manage your expectations. If you've got that, I could have that with Rupert, that's fine.
That's what I was going to say. It's important to just keep that kind of neutral mind, because you might get that.
You might.
They're not all like Monty, but they're also not all like Rupert. And, I love this, that you agreed to come and talk to us, because you very clearly shows the differences. And you could get one that walks in the door as if they've been there forever. It's like, right, what are we doing?
Yeah.
But you also might not. And you won't know until they get there, because even the people who rescue them are not necessarily going to know how they are going to transition into a new home. So it's really valuable to bear that in mind, for sure.
Just take time, realize that it may take time, it may take years.
I
know people say this 3-3-3 in 3 months and whatever, and that is misleading. It may take years. And as I said, be led by them. And keeping a diary is very, very helpful.
We recommend that.
Good. Yeah, because you can see how far you have come from just walking in the back street to actually going on hour-long walks. And adapt your lives to them, really. I'm still walking at 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm still walking at 10 o'clock at night when it's nice and quiet, just so he can have a nice relaxed walk as much as possible. But I don't regret it. I've learned a lot since getting Monty. I've had to learn a lot. And it's been fascinating. And being on the dog's point of view has been fascinating. It's been a huge help. And I feel now that I will be a better dog parent. I feel now that I understand dogs not as just a dog, but as, an individual with their own wishes and feelings and thoughts and emotions. And, said, be led by them, take your time and enjoy it.
Absolutely. Enjoy the journey, not the
Yes.
destinations, for sure.
Yeah.
And they are incredible teachers. And it is, I love everything about them, as you know, but it is, for me, I find them fascinating. And that what they've taught me, obviously, is just incredible. But I think it's also, like you say, bearing in mind that it might take some time, but it is a journey. It is a learning. What they have to teach us is actually really valuable. And every single dog, just like every single person, is unique, is individual. They have their own specific perceptions of things, in how the world impacts them or doesn't, as the case may be. So there really is no one size fits all for anything. We can put things in place, or we can do things a certain way, but it might not be right for that dog. It might not be right for that dog. Every single dog is unique in the same way that we are. And that is why you have to kind of be right. Okay, well, I'm ready for this. I'm prepared, but I don't have any expectations. I'm going to wait and see the dog in front of me, and then we'll go from there. And I think that is a really, really valuable tip for everybody, for sure. I love this picture on the right of them. He looks regal in a lot of his, I know you've shared a lot of pictures with us, and he really does look very kind of like, I can imagine him on some kind of king's portrait sat next to him going, yes, I'm with the king.
And this is his favorite spot. He loves looking out over the main road and just watching the world go by.
Yes, yeah, you've shared pictures, haven't you, of them both on the bed, standing, looking out the window. What's going on in the street, mate? Wonderful. Well, unfortunately, we do have to wrap up. I could just talk about it all day, but thank you so much, Gillian, for coming along and chatting to us. I know that there will be lots of interesting but also helpful stuff in your story and your journey with these guys so far that will be beneficial to other people listening. So I'm really, really grateful that you agreed to come along and chat with us. And obviously spending an hour looking at pictures of Monty and Rupert is just, what a better way to start the day.
And thank you for inviting me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. And obviously I will speak to you soon in the group sometime.
Okay.
Lovely.
Thank you,
Thanks
Mish.
a lot, Gillian.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Speak soon.
Bye. Bye.